Hey drummers, it's Rob Litton here from drumstheword.com and welcome to this free mini song lesson where I'm going to teach you the main parts, the coolest parts from the song Elephant Stone by the Stone Roses, drummed by Wren. And what I've got for you today is the main drum part, the main drum beat that you hear throughout the song, plus that cool drum fill that occurs every few bars or so, every fourth bar, or eighth bar, I can't quite remember. And then the outro as well, but alternatively I've also got the live version that Alan plays for the main drum part and also for the drum fill part as well. So I want to show you what's on the recording, but then I also wanted to show you what Alan played live, because he did change it up a little bit. Also the live version he plays is probably, well, for the main drum part, probably a little bit easier for most drummers out there. So you've got some alternatives if you're finding the main part a little bit too tricky. You can download this free PDF from my website. You'll find a link beneath this video. I've got all the parts here for you, so have this printed out in front of you as we go through this together. And this song was suggested over on my Facebook page. And so if you want to make your own song suggestions, then please go over there to do so. You'll find a link beneath this video. So at the top of the chart, I've written notes. Double-handed hi-hat parts were overdubbed throughout the song. So on the recording, you hear like a hi-hat part, where Alan's sort of playing around with the hi-hat in the background, and then that was overdubbed over what Alan was playing on the actual drum kit. So if you're trying to replicate the actual recording, it's impossible because you've got the hi-hat being overdubbed, then you've got the tom part, and of course Alan doesn't play a combination of that live either. So let's just crack on with the actual main drum beat. So we're going to ignore the bass drum for now. Let's just take a look at what the hands are doing. This is probably the trickiest part because we've got some crossover stuff, which I'm not very good at, as you're going to see. So the first bar, and I've used this sticking, I've noticed the way Alan plays it live as well. This is sticking that Alan uses, and this is sticking that I would use as well. It just makes sense. He plays 1 and 2 and So right, left, 1 and 2 and Then you've got to leave a little gap. For beat 3 is skipped over, and he comes back in with the floor tom with the left hand on the E of 3. 3, E, and Now sometimes when he's playing it live, and on the recording I'm sure you can't quite hear it, he's sometimes playing that as a ghost note, the note on 3 that's missing on the chart. You could play that as a ghost note, add some dynamics in, but you want to emphasise that difference between the and of 2 and the E of 3. There's a little gap there with the dynamics. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 1 and 2 and 3 E and Then the weird or tricky part, which is quite unique for this drum part, is Alan crosses his arm over to his snare drum, his right hand, for beat 4. So he plays 4, not like that, 4 E and 4 E and 4 E and So it's a little bit weird if you're not used to crossing your arm over like that, like I'm not too. Also, I want to say that I'm used to playing, I like to play a lot, rim shots. And so when I was crossing my hand over, this snare drum note on beat 4 was a little bit weaker than the snare drum note on beat 2 that I was playing normally. So you may notice that as I give you examples, so forgive me for that. I wasn't able to make every single note consistent, the snare drum backbeat consistent. And you might find the same difficulty as well if you like to play rim shots like me. So let's put that bar together. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and Then it just loops into the next bar. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and The reason I've written it as a 2-bar pattern is because of the bass drum that sort of takes 2 bars to loop round. And what Reni does, and it's very hard to hear on the actual mix, but when he plays it live, you can see him play it a little bit easier. He's playing the bass drums on the upbeats, the ands of each beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But the first bar starts with 2 bass drums to sort of give that downbeat a bit more emphasis. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and Might take a little bit of practice to line up the bass drum with what your hands are doing. 1 and, it starts with 1 and on the bass drum. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and missed the bass drum there at the end. As you go into the second bar, he doesn't play the 1 on the bass drum, he just continues the upbeat bass drum on the and. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and But then when you loop it round, you get and 1 and on the bass drum. So if we put the 2 bars together, 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and I'm slipping up a little bit because I'm having to think about where my limbs are lining up. I've talked about this in other videos, is that sometimes the faster you play something, the easier it becomes because you're not having to think exactly what limbs are falling. I sort of go into automatic mode when I speed it up, and that bass drum I hear it on the ands. I'm not really thinking about what limb it lines up with. But this is what you got to do when you practice something slowly. You got to take it off the page. So no excuses, although that is an excuse. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and that was much more solid. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 and it was the looping bit we got to get. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 and. Okay, so now I'm going to play it up to speed for you without the microphone on so you can hear just the drums, loop around a few times, and I'll also throw in that cool drum fill that he plays as well. Here we go. So next up, I've got the alternative live version of that drum beat. So when he plays it live, he does play that drum beat, but then he goes into this second drum beat in sort of random places. He changes it. I've watched a couple of videos of them playing it live, and he doesn't put it in the same place, but he does seem to consistently play this drum beat live. We're playing open hi-hats on the ands here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Create like a disco drum beat kind of thing, dance beat. And underneath that, I'm going to leave out the open hi-hat for now just so we can get the bass drum and snare drum off the page. We get 1 and 2 and 3 E and. That's the interesting bit. And 3 E and 4 and. Into the second bar where, again, we're skipping over the bass drum on 1. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4. And then at the end of that second bar, I've written the floor tom on the and of 4. Now, he doesn't play the floor tom every 2 bars, but I didn't want to make it a 4-bar pattern and just repeat the drum beat 3 times and then put the floor tom at the end. So I gave you a 2-bar example, and you have to watch him play it live, that he doesn't play this floor tom every 2 bars. Sometimes it's every 4 bars, sometimes it's every 8 bars. It sort of goes with the music. But he plays for the second bar, 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and, with the bass drum as well. So if we loop it round, again, without the open hi-hats, leave out the crash cymbal at the beginning, 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1. So now we've got to add in the open hi-hat part. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1 and 2 and when you loop it round, you probably want to play the and 1 and, the 3 bass drums in a row. I didn't do it then, but I'll do it now. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1. Another little point of interest is that sometimes he plays the and 3 E going over it into the second bar as well, which would be and 1 E, 4, the and of 4, 4 and 1 E. So you could play, for example, I haven't got an example, but you could play 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1 E and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1. He doesn't do that every time, but he does do that occasionally. So now let's hear those 2 bars played up to speed. Okay, so then we go on to that cool drum fill, and the first time it occurs in the song is at 16 seconds. This is the album version I'm going to show you first. You can hear on the album that the tom parts stop, And then he plays a very, very basic 2-bar drum beat, really, just between the bass drum and snare drum. That's what I'm hearing. And then he goes into that drum fill at the end of the second bar. So the first bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And into the second bar, 1 and 2 and 3. And this is the drum fill. I play right hand or left hand for beat 3, doesn't really matter. 3 and 4 E and. 3 and 4 E and 1. Going back to beat 1. 3 and 4 E and. 3 and 4 E and. So we get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and. Very, very simple on the recorded version. Next we're going to take a look at the live version, but before we do that, let's hear that up to speed a couple of times. So then we go into the live version, which is the version I would definitely play. It's the same bass drum snare drum pattern, but we're playing quarter notes, open hi-hat quarter notes on the hi-hat. Sometimes Reni played it as eighth notes. Most time he's just playing it as quarter notes. So we get, for the first bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and into the second bar, 1 and 2, and then this is the cool bit. He plays the bass drum on the and a beat 2, but with that bass drum he plays a 3-note rough, a triplet. So starting on the and a beat 3, and a beat 2, sorry, he plays and to 3, and that's a sticking I would use. I believe that's a sticking Reni Alan uses. Right, right, left, right. So the live version, he adds in a little flurry to it. You could, of course, just play a double instead, if you wanted to. But I noticed that Alan plays the 3-note rough. He again goes into the drum fill with the right hand because the sticking allows you to get into the beginning of the drum fill on beat 3 correctly. So let's hear that a couple of times. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and. So again, that triplet, to emphasise it, you start on the and with the bass drum and the right hand comes out, or should come out correctly on beat 3. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and. It's a lot of fun to play. So let's hear that up to speed a couple of times. And then finally we got the outro, which is exactly the same as our beginning drum beat, with a couple of changes. First of all, he's playing these 3 stabs at the beginning of the 2-bar pattern. 1 and 2 between the snare drum and crash cymbal. He could be playing it with the bass drum at the same time. I don't think he would though. I think it's just the bass drum on beat 1 only, because the bass drum loops around nicely. 1 and 2, but you could play 1 and 2 if you wanted to give those stabs a bit more power. Feel free to experiment with that. So we get 1 and 2, and then exactly the same start after that point for the drum fill, the drum beat. We come down to the floor tom, and 3 E and 4 E and. So exactly the same as we did before. And 3 and 3 E and 4 E and. And then the second bar is the same as our second bar for the original drum beat, but notice the end, because we've got to get up to the crash and snare. So he plays 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and. Just 4 E and, not 4 E and. He just leaves out that last 16th note, giving his hands time to move back to the snare and crash. So slowly, 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 E and. And I did that quite a bit. I changed the bass drum from the upbeat to the downbeat accidentally there. Do it again for you. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and. And that time I played the 4 E and at the end twice. Again, I'm going to keep these mistakes in just so you can sort of be aware of how tricky it is to take it off the page initially. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E a 3 E and a 4 E and 1 and 2 and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 E and a 4 E and 1 and 2. And now let's hear that up to speed. So there you go. Hope you found that fun, useful, enjoyable. If you've got any questions, email me, rob@drumstheword.com. Don't forget to download the free PDF that came with this lesson. Again, you'll find the link beneath this video. Also go over to my Facebook page if you want to make song suggestions. You'll find a link down there as well also. And then you might want to consider signing up to become an online member at my website, drumstheword.com. And what I currently offer for $97 is a full year's online access to every single full video song lesson I've ever recorded and transcribed. And that's over 400 famous and popular songs on the website already, including at least one other Stone Roses song. I can't remember which song it is, but there will be more in the future, I'm sure. Lots and lots of more Stone Roses stuff to come in the future. But like I said, you get access to over 400 full video song lessons. And like this lesson where I teach you just the main parts, in those full song lessons I teach you every single beat, bar and fill from start to finish. You get the fully transcribed drum chart to come with each lesson, and there's over 400 of them. As a thank you for signing up, I give you even more. I give you access to hundreds more videos teaching you many, many famous drum beats, fills and solos. I give you 3 ebooks I've written over the years containing hundreds more famous drum beats, fills and solos. And then over the year of your subscription, you also gain instant online access to all the new material that I upload for my members. And I record new lessons every week unless I'm ill or on holiday. So you've got lots of cool stuff to look forward to over the year of your subscription. But if you've got any questions about any of that, feel free to email me, rob@drumstheword.com. And until our next drum lesson together, toodle pip and happy drumming to you.